If you watched our last video on how Real Madrid won their 7th Champions League title, you'll remember we said it was a turning point for all the European titles they won later. Before that, they were trying for 32 years without any results, almost to the point of giving up. Well, it was kind of the same story in 2014 when they won La Decima. They had been trying for 12 years and nothing was working for them. Plus, they couldn't even get past the round of 16 for 7 straight years. They were basically like PSG today, spending millions on the best players but with no European results. Especially since AC Milan won their 7th title in 2007, closing the gap to just 2 titles. Everyone started saying Milan would soon overtake Real Madrid. And then there was FC Barcelona, dominating Europe and winning the sextuple in 2009. So that summer, Florentino Perez decided enough was enough and spent over 258 million euros on Cristiano Ronaldo, Kaká, Karim Benzema, Xabi Alonso, and others. 3 out of these 4 were the best in their positions and had already won the Champions League. So everyone thought Real Madrid would finally do it, especially with the final set to be played at the Bernabeu. But they got knocked out again in the round of 16. The worst part was that Barcelona had the best team in the world and were motivated to celebrate the title at the Bernabeu, which would have been a huge embarrassment for all Madridistas. Luckily for them, Jose Mourinho came through and kicked them out in the semifinals, doing Real Madrid a big favor. That's why he was the right coach for the new project, and he was brought in that summer along with players like Di Maria, Ozil, Khedira, and Carvalho. Sadly, none of this worked as they got knocked out in the semifinals for 3 years in a row. Each loss was painful, first to Barcelona in 2011, then to Bayern on penalties, and finally to Dortmund with that humiliating 4-1 loss. So, Real Madrid had no choice but to sack Mourinho. But to be fair, Mourinho was the one who started everything. I mean, he broke the curse of not reaching the semifinals that had lasted for years. Plus, he signed some important players who served the club for a long time. Besides the ones we already mentioned, he also brought in Luka Modric, Varane, Coentrão, and many others. But Mourinho had one problem, which is that he created a lot of drama and had conflicts with some players. So they thought of appointing Carlo Ancelotti. I mean, you know the man. Wherever he goes, he brings a good environment and titles too. And of course, Real Madrid had to spend a lot of cash again. They signed the best player in the Premier League, Gareth Bale, for more than 100 million euros, which was a world record at the time. They also bought new talents like Isco and Ilaramendi, who was supposed to replace Xabi Alonso, and brought back Carvajal from Leverkusen. They also sold some important players too, like Ozil, Higuain, and Kaká. Also, Real Madrid started the season with a different goalkeeper, Diego Lopez, because Casillas was getting older and his performance was inconsistent. But in September, Ancelotti announced that Casillas would be the main goalkeeper for the Champions League and Copa del Rey, while Diego Lopez would play in La Liga. So the competition started and they had a relatively easy group with Juventus, Galatasaray, and Copenhagen. The first match was in Turkey, and Real Madrid had some bad memories from that stadium. The last time they played there, in the quarterfinals of the previous season, they lost and almost got knocked out if they hadn't won the home game. But this time, they won easily, 6-1 with Cristiano Ronaldo scoring a hat-trick. The next match was against Copenhagen, and again they won easily, 4-0. Finally, they beat Juventus 2-1. The same thing happened in the away games. They only drew once against Juventus, so they finished the group stage on top, and Cristiano Ronaldo scored 9 goals in the group stage. By doing that, he broke the record previously held by Van Nistelrooy, Inzaghi, and Crespo, which was 8 goals. And in the round of 16, they faced Schalke. It was an easy 2 games, home and away, as they beat them 9-2. But in the quarterfinals, they had to face Dortmund, which was a nightmare for Real Madrid at that time. You all remember they kicked them out of the competition the season before with that catastrophic 4-1 loss. That same season, they lost and drew with them in the group stage, finishing second. By the way, it was a deadly group like this year, and the first and second teams faced off again in the semi-finals, with Dortmund making it to the final at Wembley. Anyway, now in 2014, they're facing them again. But this time, things are different. Modric has improved a lot, and Isco was great at keeping the ball. So Dortmund failed in their counter-pressing, which was how they beat them before. The first leg was at the Bernabeu, and they won 3-0. However, the away game was a bit different. Cristiano was out due to injury, and the players were overconfident, thinking they had already killed off the second leg and that Dortmund couldn't make a comeback. but they were wrong. Dortmund scored 2 goals in the first half hour, thanks to an impressive solo performance from Marco Reus. Some are now saying that Real Madrid should let Reus win the Champions League, saying that would be his best exit. But they don't know how much they suffered from him and Dortmund in the past. Anyway, after he scored the second goal, Real Madrid fans started freaking out because the third goal could come at any moment, leading to another disappointment. However, Real Madrid held strong in defense, making some substitutions that changed the game. But overall, it was a miracle they held on, and after that match, Dortmund never beat Real Madrid again. And we'll see what happens in the upcoming final. So Real Madrid made it to the semi-finals, and this time they faced another German club, Bayern Munich. They were unstoppable, having just won the treble. It was also Pep Guardiola's first year as their coach, and he was trying to create another version of FC Barcelona. I mean, when they had the ball, you couldn't take it from them. So Ancelotti decided to play the first leg at the Bernabeu defensively and use counterattacks whenever they had the chance. That's exactly what they did, winning by 1 goal scored by Benzema. And yes, Bayern possessed the ball, but they didn't know what to do with it. That was Guardiola's problem at Bayern. When he was at Barcelona, they possessed the ball, but scored from almost every chance, and everyone could score. However, Bayern players struggled against well-organized teams. They kept the ball, but ended up with just a few shots on target. That's why the players spoke with Guardiola, saying his style didn't suit them and that they should just play direct attacking football without any fancy philosophy. But the second leg was a disaster for them. They didn't know how to defend and left so many spaces, which led to them losing by 4 goals. And in this match, Cristiano reached his 16th goal, which was a record at the time, and you remember his celebration when he scored the 15th. After the match, Guardiola said it was the worst game in his entire coaching career, so they went on to face Atletico de Madrid in the final, which was the worst team anyone could face. Plus, they were La Liga champions that season and had beaten Real Madrid home and away. Without forgetting that the previous season, they also lost to them in the Copa del Rey at the Bernabeu, making Atletico their worst nightmare in those couple of years. Plus, to reach the final, Atletico had kicked out the best teams in Europe, like AC Milan, FC Barcelona, and Chelsea. They were like a wall in defense. No one could pass them. And behind them, there was Courtois, and their counterattacks and corners always turned into goals, especially with Diego Costa, who was a goal machine. Plus, Casillas was making a lot of mistakes on crosses and corner balls. And on May 24th, the big day came, and the match started. Right from the beginning, Gareth Bale missed an opportunity that no one can miss. It was like a penalty. If he had scored, everything would have changed. Atletico would have had to come out of defense and leave spaces, but he didn't score. Shortly after, as expected, an aerial ball came in, and Casillas made a positioning mistake. Godin scored, and the nightmare began. All the Atletico players went back to defend, and Real Madrid tried to score again and again with no results. Everyone thought it was over. Then in the last moments, Real Madrid got a corner, their final chance before the referee would blow the whistle. Modric took the corner, and Sergio Ramos scored, as if he had been waiting for it. I'm sure all Madridistas never screamed and will never scream like they did at that moment. They've experienced many crazy comebacks, but this one was special. It was unexpected. The impossible happened. But today, it's almost routine. You know at any moment they'll score. Everything started from that header by Ramos, and the team's strong personality grew year after year. I mean, a team that comes back in such conditions can do anything, and you could see it in their opponents' faces, from the players to the fans. They knew it was over, and they were right. Real Madrid scored another 3 goals in just 10 minutes and finally won the title after so much suffering. And Cristiano was like a machine in this competition, scoring 17 goals, a record still not broken even today. And he didn't even play all the matches because he was injured. But he scored in every match he appeared in except one against Bayern. And that's because he had just come back from injury and wasn't ready. But as always, Ancelotti knows how to adapt even with many missing players. For example, during the celebration, you could see Xabi Alonso didn't play the final. He wasn't injured or unready. It wasn't because he was old or had lost his place. No, he was an important player throughout the competition. But in the semi-final, he got a yellow card against Bayern, which kept him from playing in the final. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a pictures guy. I mean, I like to take pictures of other people, but I don't take pictures of myself. But in a moment like this, I definitely go change to look like everyone else. Not like someone who was on the bench the entire season and didn't work hard for it. You might say, who cares? All the missing players do this, and everyone knows how important he was. I know, I'm sorry, but I had to say it. Anyway, as you know, they created an anthem for this title, best known as Real Madrid y nada más. That's why this anthem became so iconic and is played at every match now at the Bernabeu. But if Ramos hadn't scored that header, we'd never hear it. Actually, a lot of things might have changed if he didn't score. For example, they might never have won the 3 consecutive Champions League titles that Zidane won. Because winning the title needs more than just big players. It needs confidence and mental readiness, which they got after that Lisbon final. Also, Atletico would be on another level. I mean, they'd have won the Champions League and probably won it again in 2016. Just imagine, 2 titles in 3 years. We'd see them now like Chelsea in Europe. Don't get me wrong, they're still a big club, but if it wasn't for Real Madrid, they'd be in a different category. Also, Diego Simeone would be considered one of the greatest managers of all time. He already is, but he'd be even more highly regarded. Instead, he got hurt, as he said after losing. This pain will never go away. I don't think any team has hurt Simeone more than Real Madrid, and all thanks to Ramos. As he himself said after, the La Decima goal was the greatest reward of my career. Atletico were convinced they were lifting the trophy. I saw the Atletico kitmen coming out with the champagne and champions shirts. The next moment, the corner came in and I scored. I'll never forget that moment. It is the best goal of my life. I'm sure for a lot of Madridistas, it's their best goal ever too. I mean, why not? It's the reason why they experience these moments every year now.